Abba Andrew. They used to say about Abba Andrew that he once dwelt for 2 whole months in a little hut used for storing barley. One time, he met with Abba Poman and told him, "Whenever I go off to a neighbor's cell, or he comes to me for some need, we're both afraid that we'll say something unfitting while speaking with each other." The elder replied, "You do well, since youthfulness requires much vigilance." And Abba Andrew asked him, "So what, then, did the elders used to do?" Since they were spiritually advanced, the elders had nothing to say that was either different from or foreign to the truth. "But whenever it is necessary for me to speak with a neighbor," said Abba Andrew, "do you wish for me to speak from the scriptures or from the councils of the elders?" The elder replied, "If you're unable to keep silent, it is good to speak from the councils of the elders rather than from scripture, for there is no small danger in doing that." Abba Anastasios. Story 1. Another time when he was debating doctrine with a heterodox, they made the same agreement, for he desired, if possible, that all be saved. And once he had demonstrated the truth, and the man refused to receive communion, even though he had made a promise, he said, "Because you are not persuaded now, you will find persuasion in the fate of your only begotten child, since you have transgressed your oath." And so it occurred. Within a few days, his son passed away. After this took place, the man was greatly afraid, and came and fell before the saint in repentance over his transgression, and he begged that he might be made worthy of the correct faith and the monastic habit. So Anastasius permitted him to struggle together with the fathers of Ratho. Abba Andrew. Story 1. Abba Andrew from Messenia told us the following story. Once, when I was younger, my Abba and I departed from Ratho on a journey to Palestine, where we stayed with an elder. The elder who hosted us happened to have a single coin, and having forgotten where he had put it, he suspected that I, the younger man, had stolen it. So he began telling the fathers in that area, "Brother Andrew stole my coin." When my Abba had heard this rumor, he called on me and asked, "Tell me, Andrew, did you take the elder's coin?" And I answered frankly, "Take pity on me, Abba. I didn't take anything." I had a mantle, however, and I sold it for a coin and took it to the elder. And after prostrating before him, I said, "Forgive me, Reverend Abba, for Satan has mocked me, and I took your coin." There happened to be a layman there too, and the elder said to me, "Go, my child. I didn't lose anything." But again, I prostrated before him and said, "For the Lord's sake, accept the coin. Look, this is it. And pray for me, since Satan put me up to this business, stealing from you and giving you grief." Yet the elder said, "Child, I didn't lose anything." Since he wasn't convincing me with any success, the layman then turned to me. "Truly, Reverend Brother, yesterday when I came, I found the elder weeping and prostrating himself in great sorrow. When I saw him in such distress, I said, 'Do me a favor and tell me, what's wrong?' And he said, 'I slandered a brother and said that he stole my coin, but look, I just found out where I put it.' And so the elder was edified through me, because even though I didn't steal it in the first place, I brought him a coin and said, 'Take this coin that I stole from you.'" Story 2. There was one brother who had a demon, and he went on a journey to the wonderful mount to see Abba Simeon the Stylite, so that he would intercede for him and cast out the demon from him. Abba Simeon asked him, "Where do you live?" And the brother said, "In Ratho." And the elder replied, "Brother, I am amazed that you endured so much labor and came such a long way to see me, a sinful man, when you have many such fathers there in your lavra. So then, go to Abba Andrew and prostrate before him, so that he may pray on your behalf and heal you immediately." Therefore the brother returned to Ratho and prostrated himself before Abba Andrew, just as Abba Simeon had told him to do, and said, Pray for me, Abba." Abba Andrew said to him, "Abba Simeon has received the grace of healing." And as soon as he said a blessing, the brother was cleansed immediately and gave thanks to God. Anonymous Sayings. Story 1. There was a young monk who was sent by his Abba to a brother who owned a garden in Sinai to bring back some fruit for his elder. Once he arrived, he said to the brother who was the master of the garden, "Abba, my elder asks if you have some fruit for him." And he said, "Yes, child. Whatever it is you desire, you will find here. Take it with my blessing." And so the young monk replied, "So then, is the mercy of God here, Abba?" When he heard this, he stood thoughtfully, staring at the ground, and said to the young man, "What is that you said, my child?" And the young man said again, "I said, Abba, is the mercy of God to be found here?" When he asked this question yet a third time, the master of the garden was silent for an hour, unable to give any answer to the young man. Finally, he sighed and said, "God is our helper, my child." He then dismissed the young man, straightway took up his mantle, abandoned his garden, and went off into the desert. "Let us go seek out the mercy of God," he said. "For if a young child has asked me, and I could not give him an account, what shall I do when I am asked by God himself?" Story 2. There was one devout brother who came from a foreign land to live in a small cell on Mount Sinai. On the first day he came to live there, he found a small piece of wood with an inscribed message left by the brother who had once lived there. "I, Moses, son of Theodore, am present here, and I am leaving my testimony." The monk placed the wood before his eyes every day and asked the one who had written, as though he were present, "Where are you now, O man, that you are saying you are present and leaving your testimony? What world are you in at this time? Where is the hand that has written this?" And thus did he pass his days, in remembrance of death and lamentation. His occupation was calligraphy, and he had received from the brothers some papyrus and a writing device, and he died without having written anything to anyone. He only wrote in a small notebook and left every roll of papyrus that the brethren had given him with a note saying, "Forgive me, reverend fathers and brothers, for I had a small engagement with someone, and that is why I never had the opportunity to write for you." Story 3. Another of the fathers dwelt in Ratho, in a place called Chalkis. An abbot once came to him and said, "Abba, I worry whenever I send a brother out for service." The father replied, "Whenever I send my attendant on an errand, I sit at the door and watch. And when the thought comes to me saying, 'When is your brother coming back?' I reply back, 'And if another brother could come first and take me up to be with the Lord, what then?' And in this way, day by day, I look out the door and fret and weep over my sins and say, 'But which brother will come first, he from above or he from below?'" And the abbot was greatly comforted and went away and kept the same custom ever after. Story 4. Yet again, on the same holy summit before it was yet defiled and sullied by the people now living there was a certain brother who was the sexton's attendant. He once presumed to hide himself within the church, thinking that it would be no sin to sleep there. And so, when the caretaker had burned incense and locked the church doors, he departed, assuming his disciple had already left. That night, the disciple got up from his hiding place in the church to clean the candles. But when he approached the first candle, by divine direction, one of the sparks he scattered landed on his side. The place instantly withered, all down his side and his arm and his leg, and he remained half paralyzed until the end of his days. Story 5. A certain abbot dwelling in Ratho would spend his time in the following way. He would sit all day in his cell, deep in thought, bowed to the ground with his head nodding back and forth, sighing, "What now? What now?" And then he would fall silent for about an hour and work his handicraft, and then bow his head and repeat, "What now? What now?" And in this way, he spent all the days of his life brooding over his own demise. Story 6. Some brothers who were visiting us in Ratho told us the story. There once was a hard-working abbot who dwelt in the crevices above the so-called Cave of Joel. He had such presence of mind that when he walked, he would pause at almost every step and examine his thoughts and ask himself, "Well, how about it, brother? How are we doing?" And if he found his thoughts meditating on verses from the Psalter or in prayer, all was well. But if he caught them dwelling on any other thing, he would curse himself at once and say, "Come back here, foolish head of mine. Back to your task." This is how the abbot would always talk to himself. "Brother, the time to depart is close at hand, and I still do not even know my own mind." One time, Satan appeared and said to him, "Why do you wear yourself out? You shall surely not be saved." The abbot replied, "What does it matter to you? Even if I do not see salvation, I will still be found standing over your head, and you will be at the very bottom in hell." Story 7. Some fishermen from Paran told us the story. One day, we went over to fish on the other side of the Red Sea and made a good catch. So we weighed anchor and landed near Petrolium, intending to make for Ratho. But the winds were against us. For many days we wandered through the desert, until we came across 3 deceased anachorites in a small cave. They were wearing calabia made of palm fibers, and their cloaks were lying next to them. So we took them and brought them to our boat, and at once both the sea and the winds died down. A fair breeze kicked up, and we joyfully crossed back over to Ratho, where the fathers took them and buried them with the senior abbots. Story 8. One day during the Feast of Holy Pentecost, during the Eucharistic prayer on the Holy Summit when the priest read the Trisagion, the mountains all around thundered back thrice, "Holy, holy, holy!" And the sound and the roar hung in the air for about half an hour. Not all heard this roar, but only those with ears, of whom the Lord said, "He who has ears, let him hear."